Hello, everyone, and welcome to TTRPG Talk, our Wednesday live stream where we just chat about all things TTRPG. I'm rjcurrer. As always, I'm your host. And so today, I thought that since tis the season, we could talk about some cool GMing toys. I mean tools, necessary tools that I like to use when I'm GMing. Basically, I kind of wanted to do a little tour of some of my GMing kit, kind of talk about what I look for in various pieces. I don't know that you're going to find a lot in here that's super unique. I think a lot of GMs use this basic equipment, but I kind of wanted to break down what I like, what I don't like, why I like it, and under what circumstances. Because I think that your GMing toolkit is one, it's really personal. It's got to fit what you need and your preferences and that kind of thing. But it also really depends on what you're GMing and where you're GMing, right? Because you've got a lot more that you can use when you are GMing in, say, like a home setting than if you're doing an away game somewhere else. And so I kind of want to talk about the pros and cons and what I like and don't like and what I use these days, which is all pretty all pretty simple stuff. But thought this today would be a good time to chat about that. So as always, if you've got your own comments, your own opinions, your own thoughts, please jump in the chat. Let me know. I love when this is a dialogue as opposed to just me, talking out into the ether. So, without any further ado, let's talk about the basics. You know, I will run a game with nothing more than just dice if I need to. Done it before. I will say it feels very seat of my pants. um, I don't feel prepared or steady at all, but sometimes you get cool stuff out of there when you're a little bit uncomfortable. Um, but if I have things my way, I would want to have at least three other things when I GM any TTRPG. One, I want a GM screen because I am a hide things behind the GM, secret roles kind of guy. I like to do that. I like the suspense. I like the mystery of it and the little tingle of sensation that players get when you roll behind the screen. And so I want to talk about one, kind of the screens that I like, why I like them, and what I look for. Um, Two, I want a dice tray that will contain my dice in some capacity because I don't want to be spread out all over the place. I really, really don't like it when I roll dice and they scatter everywhere, and then I got to dig under the table in the middle of the game to go chase down a d20 or what have you. So I want to talk about kind of the iterations and the situations in which I like different kinds of dice trays. Um, and then I need something to take notes with. And this is probably the most basic piece of my gear, but I've become super particular about how I do it over the years. And so I'll kind of talk about that and the evolution of that. And then with time to spare, we'll talk about some of the add-ons that I like. But let's get to the basics first before I get way ahead of myself and kind of off track here. So, first thing, let's talk about dice tray. If I could have nothing at all with me other than, dice, well, let's be honest, something to take notes on that's probably more important. We'll get to that. We'll get to that last though. But if I could have nothing beyond dice and something to take notes with, the dice tray is the thing that I want. And I've gone through a couple kind of iterations of that in my gaming career. I started out like everybody without one, and soon grew frustrated playing, go fetch dice for half the game as dice would scatter all over the place, no matter how hard I rolled or soft I rolled. And so the first kind of dice tray that I got was this behemoth. Um, I was looking for something that I could use the table that would be self-contained. It's one of the things I really look for in a dice tray is something that holds my dice. I'm not a big I want a dice bag and a dice tray person. I want it all to be one kind of thing. Um, and so I jumped on Amazon and I got one that was relatively inexpensive. Wood for sturdiness, which I really liked. Cool little clasp. I thought it had a nice little detail to it, and it had a bunch of cool little bells and whistles with it. For example, you open it up and it's got this whiteboard on the inside, which I am a fan of being able to take quick notes with. It has a removable dice tray that I was talking about, and a place to store pens and pencils and the dice when you're not using them, and then it's got all these little cubbies for dice and pens and erasers and tokens and what have you, which was super helpful when I was starting out. Um, the problem though is that it's massive. Um, it is a big boy. Um, and it takes up a lot of space on the table, especially once you kind of explode it out and you have all the pieces that are there. And so I found that I was having to take up huge sections of the table that was really kind of, frankly, encroaching on other people's space to be able to really use this. So even at my home games where I had kind of all the space that I wanted, it just became too much. So I overcorrected and I got really, really streamlined. And I went and I got this little guy from Dungeons Box. And this is probably a good time to mention that I am not affiliated with any of these products in any way, shape, or form. I am not sponsored by anybody here. You'll notice there's no affiliate links to buy your own in the link to this video. This is just stuff that I genuinely use. Um, and so I got this guy on a Kickstarter, and I looked it up today, and I don't think Dungeon Box even makes this particular one anymore, although they still make some cool little dungeon vaults. But this guy is itty bitty, teeny tiny, and he's perfect for away games, I found. You open him up, and super simple. I'm going to do this with try to avoid spilling all the dice that are in here already. And it's just kind of clamshells into two compartments. You have a place. Uh, let's see this so you can actually see it. You have a place that stores your dice. You've got a little place that I can jam my phone in there, so that when I'm using my character sheet or playing off of a D&D Beyond app or what have you, I can have all my data right there. And then it's got the actual dice tray to roll in. Not a ton of space, but it's great for when you're on the go and you just don't have a ton of space like cons. I love this little bad boy when I'm playing at a con. Um, I especially like the cut of it because it will fit in the back of my jeans pocket. So I can just scoot that little bad boy in there and roll out with almost everything that I need to play with. Um, so this is my overcorrection. Initially, I got this after my my big boy behemoth that I just showed you, and I like it, but it's not quite as much as I would want typically. And so I ended up caving and settling for one of the wormwood vaults. And I say settling for, it's really nice. I'm a big fan of it. I will say that you don't necessarily need to pay for the brand name. There's a bunch of companies out there that make similar sorts of products that I think are very, very good. Um, but again, I got this guy on Kickstarter, early days, and one of the things that I really love about it is that it is such a complete package. It's got everything I need to hold my dice in here. It's got this nice open dice tray, gives me plenty of room to roll a ton of dice and scare the absolute crap out of my players. And then it's got this cool little dice vault here that I can put, I token in if I'm going to be a player, or I can store my myriad dice for when I am just wreaking havoc. Nice and streamlined, and it too, sorry about that, that was probably a little loud, uh, fits really nicely into a bag, makes it really easy to kind of go places and travel with it. So big fan of that. Um, I will say that most of the time when I am playing in-person games, I am playing somewhere other than at home. Um, Often I am playing at a brewery, which is a lot of fun if you've ever done it. And so having something that's easy to kind of pack up and take with me is really valuable to me, especially when it comes to dice trays and dice vaults and that kind of deal. So I tend to use the Wormwood one, as my typical go-to. But if I'm going someplace where I don't have a ton of space or I'm already carrying a bunch of other stuff, again, like a con, the Dungeons box one is really epic. I'm a big fan of that one. So those are my dice trays and what I kind of look for. Um, Dungeon Master screen, I am super simple with this. Um, I have two varieties that I use, and it only changes based off of um, what TTRPG I'm playing. If I'm playing D&D, I am using the standard DM screen, the the one that you can just buy and comes pre-printed. That has, I find, all the information that I need. I'm not a big customize my DM screen kind of guy. I don't keep a lot of super secret stuff behind there on the screen itself, because you guys have all heard me talk about my Notion templates and how I keep all of that information tracked there. So I've got all the armor classes and hit points and DCs and passive perceptions and all that kind of stuff on my computer. So I've got that kind of already kind of at my fingertips. And so really the information that I want is mechanics that I just don't hold well in my head. For example, specifically conditions in D&D, all of them and exactly what they do. I have a okay memory for it, but for whatever reason, they don't stick. So I like having them at my fingertips so I can kind of just look at them right here on the DM screen and get that information. Same kind of deal with stuff like travel DCs. If I'm looking for navigation or a foraging DC or something along those lines when we're doing wilderness exploration, which I'm a big fan of. Yeah, it's just nice to kind of have those sort of bits and pieces right, kind of available and ready for instant access while I'm playing. Now, if I'm playing something that is not D&D, I do have a customizable DM screen that is, multi pages, and it's just a full kind of regular, sheet of printer paper kind of in size. Um, and it is currently set up for Call of Cthulhu. Um, and so I like the customizable ones when I'm not playing D&D, because I don't play other TTRPGs as often as I play D&D. I still play them a fair amount, but certainly not as often. And so I like having the ability to kind of customize and put the rules up there that, again, I'm not likely to remember the stuff I know I'm going to want to reference over and over again. Um, so just depending on the TTRPG that I'm playing, that'll really determine what I put on there. Like when I play Shadow Dark, when I DM Shadow Dark, there's a bunch of cool little quick reference sheets that you can print out of the Shadow Dark PDF. I'll just slide those in the screen here, so I kind of have them outlaid in front of me here, making it nice and easy for me to pull up information that I need. Again, I don't worry too much about having player data on the back of my DM screen, because I'm going to either jot that down on a piece of paper before game, because that's just how I like to do it, or I'm going to have that in my Notion notes that I'll have up on my laptop or on my smartphone. So again, it's really more of like a quick rules reference, so that I don't get rules lawyered too often. Um, One thing that I will say, that part of the reason why I prefer, especially for D&D, the pre-made ones, is the height difference. Kind of show this to you here, make this a little awkward. Um, but you can kind of see that like one of them is a lot taller than the other here. And I like the shorter one, to be honest with you. I like that height. I feel less, sort of shielded from my players with kind of a shorter DM screen. This seems like less of a barrier. It's more of just about kind of keeping a few things private to, keep some secrets to the game, and less about kind of walling me off from them. Which is, I think, the one thing I just don't like about the customizable ones is their size. Um, which, I mean, they do that so that they're easy to customize, easy to print out sheets, but it can feel kind of separating from my players, which I'm not a huge fan of. So when I'm looking for a DM screen, I'm looking for something that is just allows me to quick reference rules, stuff that I'm not going to hold in my head, and one that will hide what I want hidden without making me feel like I am barricaded off from the people that I have decided to play this game with. My friends and family. Um, so that's what I'm looking for in a DM screen. Now, notes. Um, even working with Notion, I tend to take my notes during game in pen and paper. Um, and well, actually, pencil and paper. I don't use pen. You rapscallions who use pen as you DM. My goodness, what's it like to be so brave? I am constantly writing my notes in pencil in case I make mistakes or I need to go back and scribble something out or I change my mind about something or what have you. Um, but over the years, I have gone through a bunch of different iterations. I used to make this like, um, Amanda, a pen user. My goodness, the bravery. I can't do it. I just, I feel so, it feels so permanent every time I try to use pen when I take notes. Uh, I, I tip my cap to you. Uh, my goodness. Um, but but my note taking has evolved over the years to it started off with I made this like Excel sheet that I could just like print out, and it would have kind of my data notes on my various players on there, various characters on there, and then a big empty space where I could jot down notes of what happened in the session, that kind of deal. And I kept it in a big 3 ring binder, and that worked for a long time. And then it got really cumbersome. Um, and it also takes up a lot of space at the table. Again, I found that I have my books, and then I would have the binder, and I would just kind of spread. And nobody likes a man spreading DM. You're allowed a certain amount of space, but you're not allowed the whole table, right? So again, I started looking for things that were a little more compact, um, and uh, and so I was starting to take notes on like little A5 notebooks. Amanda says I take notes in a pocket notebook. Yeah, it was the same kind of thing, right? I was taking notes in a pocket notebook, but I'm very particular about how I take my notes. I use a Cornell style. I've done a couple videos where I've mentioned that. Um, because I just find it really easy to jot down notes and then reference them faster later with that style. And so I was finding that I spent a lot of time sort of customizing these little pocket notebooks, these little A5, moleskin size notebooks. Um, and so I took the leap. I jumped on Canva, and it turns out you can just make stuff on Canva. And I made myself a little customized notebook for taking notes in, and it literally is just. It's got like a table of contents, and it's got it's dot grid, so I can draw myself little maps, and it's got little places for me to write my dates and my session summaries and all my little tags and my notes and that kind of stuff. And it just works in the Cornell style that I like. And it started saving me a bunch of time. So I made this in Canva, which turns out, you could just make stuff in Canva for free. It's awesome. And then I actually exported it and put it up on Amazon. For my own kind of personal use. I mean, it's there if you guys are interested in it. Please help yourself. It's called Adventure Notes, and um, it's by my company, In a Wild Land, which is my LLC. Um, but actually, I think RJ Currer, I think I've listed as the author on there. But regardless, um, it's yeah, you can make the stuff, put it up on Amazon, they will print it. And I found that it was actually less expensive than buying like the moleskin notebooks. And while it's a little more expensive than buying some of the off-brand versions of those, it was one, not that much more expensive, and two, it saved me a ton of time from having to kind of line in all of this stuff, and every time I get a new notebook, spend a while kind of formatting it to my liking. So, if you are like me and super particular about how you do your notes, I highly recommend kind of making your own template. Jonathan says, I've had DM set up a card table to the side of the main table for all their stuff. Yes, I have seen that too. And I used to be that GM that would set up, I would take like a TV tray around with me and have it just have all my stack of books. And then I just kind of got to a place where I was like, why am I transporting a library with me? D&D Beyond exists. There are so many online, tool sets for this kind of stuff. I really just need a place for my laptop, and if I can keep everything else kind of consolidated, um, then became kind of my mantra, and it's really worked really really well for me. And so, creating my own little, custom sized notebook with my own little quirky custom stuff in there so that I can keep my own notations. It's been a big help for me. And so, again, if you're like me, you can create your own. I mean, feel free to grab mine if you want to. Again, it's on Amazon. Adventure Notes is the name of it. But you can create your own, and Amazon will print it for you, so you can essentially create your own product that's just for you and buy it as you need it. So those are kind of the basic things that I always want with me when I am DMing. I want that Dungeon Master screen. I want something to take notes on, and I want a dice tray and something to hold my dice in. But when I can play around and pull out some of my other accessories, the first thing that I like to add is a grid of some kind. And now I am not a big, I'm not a big miniature player. I love painting miniatures. It's a lot of fun. It takes me forever, and so I just don't have a ton of them for D&D. But and so but I still like that visual format, especially when when you're playing with people who are visual learners. And so I have a couple things that I use. Now, for a grid, I have again another behemoth, and it's like a metal grid, foot by foot, inch, 1 inch by 1 inch grid system on here. Dry erase, wet erase, yada yada yada, by Cursed Crypt. And unfortunately, I checked today, and I don't think they're in business anymore. But they make this really great solid, or they made this really great solid product that are these like interlocking tiles kind of magnetized together, which I find to be really useful at the table. But the bottom line is, you're looking for a grid that's easy to use, right? Part of the issue that I had with a lot of the roll up tabletop, grids, the ones that are kind of printed on the wet erase, finish, the vinyl, those ones, is that I had so much issue with ghosting on them, meaning that the ink would kind of remain even after I erased it, and it just I was not a fan of it. It drove me absolutely insane. And so I ended up investing in this set here, which again is big and heavy and cumbersome and has taken up more space in a carry-on than I care to admit. But I like the segmentation of it, the ability to kind of throw down one piece of a map that's kind of sketched out, um, and and then be able to throw down the next piece as the characters get to the next room and that kind of deal. But there are lots of other ways to kind of go about that. Amanda says, Amanda, you were reading my mind. That is the suggestion I was just about to make. Amanda says, I use the back of wrapping paper, which is a freaking brilliant idea. I had never thought about this. I was at Dragon Con one year and I saw a DM do it for the first time, and it blew my mind because we're playing a quickie kind of 2 hour one shot kind of game, and he's got all of the map pieces you know fitted out with the wrapping paper so that he's got each room cut out and they just kind of fit together. So he just pulls it out of this a folder, and oh, we go to the next room. Okay, well here it is. Oh, here's the next room. And so he created this really cool fog of war effect with all of the rooms for this dungeon crawl kind of already built into there. And that was such an exciting way of doing that. I was going to show you on some wrapping paper here, but I'll be honest, all of my wrapping paper is currently being used on wrapping gifts since, it is that season. But it is a really cool way of doing it, and such a low cost solution. It requires a little bit of extra prep work ahead of time, but it's it's a cool way of doing that. And then always you can just have a blank sheet there that you kind of draw out your battle maps on. You just have to have, a roll with you. And considering how inexpensive wrapping paper is, ooh, it's such a cool way of doing that. Very cool. Little bit of extra waste, so not quite as green, I would say. But come on, it's pretty makes up for it in the ease of use and kind of the elegance of that solution. So to that end, I mentioned that I don't use a lot of minis when I play, but that means that I need to have something to kind of represent um, various monsters and the characters when I am running adventures that. And I'm opening this backwards. When I am running adventures using a grid and not theater of the mind in person. And so having a series of tokens is really worthwhile. You can get some really inexpensive ones on Amazon that are color coded. I've seen some people use those little Macala board jewels as well. But just having a variety of little color coded tokens that fit within that 1 inch by 1 inch box, and maybe a couple that are a little larger for your large monsters and what have you, is super invaluable and pretty easy to do. It makes it easy to kind of array them all on the board and have this visual representation so you can really do some tactical combat even on the go. I was looking at some systems like that, and then I had the opportunity to teach my young nieces and nephews to play D&D. I was going to do it on a virtual tabletop because they're all on their computers and tablets as it is. But my brother wanted them to learn on the actual paper, like we did when we were growing up, with D token set. Um, and I will say that I like the quality of the tokens in here. It's become my favorite to use. It's certainly not necessary, but um, but I like the weight of them. I like they've got some good heft to them. They fit into your grids very easily, very nicely, and they come in a variety of sizes. So you've got everything from medium-sized creatures to large and huge, and they've got 4 different colors: blue, red, black, and gray. And I have found that the gray works really well with dry erase marker. So easy to kind of make a note as to what a particular token is and put it on the gray there. Um, and it's got a whole stack of them. It's got more tokens in here than I've ever managed to field at any one time. So I really like that. One of the cool things that they've done, and something I'm still trying to kind of crack the code on, is they have a bunch of dropping stuff here. Um, a bunch of these little window clings that they just peel off, and you can stick them on each of the appropriate sized token. And then when you're done, you peel them back off, you put them back on the sheet. They're not stickers, they're like window cling material, so that they're completely reusable, which I absolutely love. It gives a lot of versatility to this. It gives some cool graphic art, which I think is a big help, especially when you're playing with kids, to kind of help inspire their imaginations, but even adults benefit from that kind of thing. And so it's, I think, definitely kind of worth it. The one thing that I'll say that I'm trying to figure out, and I've so far yet been unsuccessful, is how I can make my own window clings for it. Not stickers, but actually that window cling material so that I can have my own custom um, pieces to put over those tokens. So if anybody has a solution for that, if anybody's made window clings before, I would love to hear about it, because that would be, I think, would really perfect this set for me, in terms of having the ability to have customized artwork kind of at my fingertips and able to be prepped and ready for campaigns. So uh, if you're going to get um, uh, if you're going to get some tokens, highly recommend it. If you are looking to do the whole window cling deal thing, getting one of the D&D official set is a pretty good way to get started. But if you're looking for something a little more cost effective, because it does cost some money, then there's a whole bunch of sets on Amazon that are the same size and just color coded, and they do an amazing job. Um, and Jonathan Frost says, use the keyword color form. I haven't tried the keyword color form, but I have looked for the material that they've used. I've Googled it a few times, and I just haven't found printer versions of it. Um, so I may just need to dig deeper and try to find somebody maybe who has like a glow forge or something like that. And maybe there's a way that we can find some of those. Maybe like maybe Cricket makes it or something like that. I need to dig a little deeper into doing that. Um, but there's got to be a way, right? There's got to be a way to make your own window clings and print them out and have your own custom art for this sort of thing. So that's one of my ongoing projects for my own DMing table. So to that end, we're kind of at our time here. So I'll just wrap up by saying that there's just really one other thing that I really found that if I have, if I have my way, I don't like to live without. It's another big boy, and it's something to organize my freaking dice in. I play with a lot of new players, and players who don't necessarily have their own dice or don't necessarily know what they need, who are playing D&D for the very first time. It's one of my favorite things to do is run in-person sessions for people who have never played. That's so much fun. I highly recommend it if you get the chance. But it requires a little bit of education, and the dice are kind of a hurdle for some folks. Not in terms of the cost, but just in terms of knowing what they need and what each die is and that kind of deal. And so having an organizer where I've kind of segmented the dice by their type. And so, there's a bin for D20s, one's for D6s, 4s, 12s, what have you. And it's just easy to go, okay, grab a dice from each of these bins and you'll have a complete set. And having them labeled when I've got new players is a great way to kind of make it easy for them to learn. I've even created little cards, little cheat sheet cards for new players that I would put out at spaces that label out what each die is. It makes it easy for them to kind of match it up. And so it saves time when you go, all right, let's roll our D20. And they go, okay, well, which one's the D20 again? It's really helpful, I find, to have them kind of organized like this and have them and have it set up so that your players can kind of segment them out on the table as well. So these organizers are hugely helpful. So I'm a big fan of that, especially if you are a burgeoning dice goblin like I am. As as Amanda points out, that's a lot of dice. Yes, that is not even all of my dice. Been doing this for 30 years. That's my only excuse. I've been playing this stuff for 30 years. I have all kinds of dice, some that get used, some that are shelf queens. I've got, I've got an uncomfortable number of dice. But but having a way to organize it so it actually gets used is paramount. Anyway, we're at our time here, so I'll go ahead and cut things off. Amanda says that's fair. Oh, and I have 1 year as of this week. Congratulations on your first year. That's awesome, Amanda. It's super exciting, and you've been a GM the whole time, right? From what I think from conversations I think we've had in other live stream chats. That's super exciting. Congratulations. Yeah, that is awesome. I love that. Anyway, thanks again for joining me today on our Wednesday chat. Hope you found some of this useful in terms of what you look for in your own kits, and maybe reaffirming that you like what you have, or maybe looking for some stuff that you might want to change up your game on. But in any case, thanks again for joining. I really love this time with you guys, this casual time to kind of chat. As I also enjoy our Monday live streams where we are continuing to build our ongoing campaign there in real time. So if you haven't checked that out, highly encourage you to come check us out on Monday and join the fun as we build some D&D adventures. Otherwise, as always, if you want to check out my own content or how I run my games, come find me on startplaying.games/GM/rjcurrer. Thanks again, and I will see you next Wednesday.